Cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, here I am. Can you hear me, Matt? Okay, good. 540-0580, Carl Rominger here. Okay, you got me now. All right. I knew there was something going on there. 540-0580. I'll get your legal questions answered here on the air. Whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want to talk about. So 540-0580, and we'll talk about pretty much any legal topic you want to. Obviously, the Supreme Court's back in session. They're going to be handling some affirmative action cases. The big one is they may invalidate a lot of the financing laws, which is going to mean potentially more money can flow into politics. Imagine that. And actually what it's going to allow is more direct money to flow. Because the reality is, as we all know, that the rich and the wealthy can fund these super PACs and these other things that are issue-based, but issue-based designed to destroy one or more candidates in particular. So with all that in mind, it may be actually a boon in some respects that if people can give directly to a candidate, we'd know that's who they're really trying to support, although I don't think if you draw the lines, most of the time it's too hard to figure out. Man, I'm supposed to have some live reads, too. Do you have any of those for me? Shane supposedly emailed them. I don't know. We'll figure it out here. I do want to remind you to stop over at Harrisburg Beer and Cigar. They've got a great selection of cigars over there. I was smoking one last night, really enjoyed it. And I thought of them when I did. It was a 770 Flathead by CAO. It's a big, robust cigar. Makes you look like a real man to smoke it. Get you lots of derisive comments as well. And again, if you have a legal question, if you have a neighbor's tree in your yard, if you want to get your child support modified, if your son was in a car accident, or you're thinking about divorcing your wife, or you have a crazy girlfriend, any of those things you want to talk about here, if you have a legal question about you need to kick her out of the house, how are you going to divide up the car and the National Geographic collection, whatever we need to know, 540-0580, and we'll answer it here on the air for you. What we'll do, obviously, is give you some legal advice. Now, I always warn people that the legal advice is free, so you get what you pay for, number one. Well, that's my uncle used to say anyhow. Number two, we can't really go into all the details. So if you're listening to this show and I tell somebody to do something and you think your case is the same or similar and you do something, I disclaim all responsibility. Because frankly, and again, if you want to jump on here, it's 540-0580, and we'll take your calls. Are we doing a toll-free number now, too? Are they back to the toll-free number? I can't figure this out around here. One never knows. Years ago, they got rid of the toll-free number, said, don't give out the toll-free number, it costs money. Now it's back up on the wall here, so I'm just trying to figure that. But I'm not going to give out the toll-free number. If you can't afford long distance, then you probably can't afford an attorney either. No, seriously. If you want to get your questions answered, and the point by this being is if you're listening to somebody else's scenario, there may be little facts that are different. So, for instance, in one divorce, somebody says, well, they got alimony. Somebody says, well, there's no alimony in Pennsylvania. Well, that's just because their friend didn't get alimony. Well, there's reasons for that. There may have been marital misconduct. There may have been cohabitation. There may have been a short marriage. It may depend what county the case is in. So all those things come into play. So when you're listening on the air and you hear somebody else's legal case answered, or me hinting at something for somebody else, it probably will not apply to your exact situation, which is why you need to talk to me or another attorney off the air about it. All right, 540-0580. Disclaimers are out of the way. Mark, you're on the air. What's going on, Mark?
How you doing, Carl?
Good.
Hey, two different topics real quick. One, Obamacare real quick. I had heard a case not too long ago where the federal courts upheld that Obama was trying to stop something to do with nuclear waste or something out in Utah. Okay. And the judge said, no, it's either you can't do anything to the law, it's either all the law or nothing. Why can't they use that as a precedent to say about Obamacare, no, you cannot change these things, it's either all the law or nothing?
Right. Well, repeat your fundamental question. What are you trying to say? I think this comes up all the time. You're saying, does the president have to follow the law?
Right.
Well,
that he can't pick and choose what to do with the law, and that's what this other case had to do with. I believe a nuclear waste facility. I think it was in Utah, and they were trying to change the law to stop it, and the judge said, no, you can't do that. It's either all the law or nothing.
Yeah,
and
why
can't they do that with Obamacare?
well, and that's a good question. Now, here's the interplay that gets problematic, okay? First of all, Congress creates laws, right, and the president signs them.
Right.
But what is an executive order? I mean, what is it?
Right.
And so, everybody out there in WHP land who is acolyte of George W. Bush should know, right? He gave out all kinds of executive orders, and they were all followed by the government, right?
Right.
Did you turn in your grave every time, or spin in circles every time he gave an executive order? Or how about Bush's signing states? And I'm not bashing Bush, by the way. I know some idiot out there is going, "Oh, look at that, he's bashing Bush." No, I'm trying to point out that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And so here's the question. So Bush would do these signing statements when he signed a bill into law and say, well, I'm going to enforce provisions 1, 2, and 3, but I find that 4, 5, and 6 are unconstitutional or unduly burdensome, and therefore I won't be enforcing them through my administration. So now, did we get the rope out and hang him for that? And the answer is no, although the Democrats complained quite a bit. In fact, Bush had more signing statements than anybody, okay? And so does Obama these days. So it's a recent trend. It's been going up over the last few decades, okay?
Well, my question about Obama signing an executive order, but if Congress has the right to levy taxes and controls the purse strings, what gives him the right to say, oh, you don't have to pay that tax, or the federal government doesn't have to collect that tax? It's
right.
not his position under the Constitution to determine
Wait. I don't think you're right. Here's why. Congress has the power to levy a tax, right?
Right.
Or to create a tax on something. Who does the collection in the government?
The
executive branch. The executive branch does, okay? So our founders created a system where Congress can create a tax and levy a tax on something, but it has to be collected by a different branch, right?
Right.
And isn't that another one of the many ways in which our Constitution was designed to potentially frustrate the power of government?
Yeah.
And so then what happens is, and because this is interesting, right? Well, okay, Congress creates a tax, the president refuses to levy, or levies a tax, president refuses to enforce it. Two things can happen. Number one is the courts can get involved, right? The third branch, and then decide the dispute between the two. So Congress or the president can take each other to court and go to the Supreme Court with a dispute and say, hey, we have a tax and he's not collecting it, or they created a tax and I believe it's unconstitutional. I'm not going to enforce it and create the issue, okay? Because courts only decide issues. So the court only gets involved when the two branches of government disagree. Now we'll back up for a second. It's also... And so the reason I'm saying all this is so whether or not Obama's failure to exercise parts of Obamacare is actionable or not is going to depend upon who has standing to complain and how a court would ultimately resolve it. Now, all this law talk is nice, right? But it sort of pretends that there isn't naked politics about. And so I always used to say, you're in law school, and they'd say, well, how did the court reach this decision, And you go through these elaborate machinations about why the court did this logic and applied those facts to this situation. But sometimes it's as simple as, well, the judge's brother-in-law's best friend was the plaintiff, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a possibility. And that's the human condition. And so you have all this pushing and shoving going on, and a lot of it's political jockeying. So Obama wants Obamacare to succeed, but obviously, as written, it's not perfect.
Right.
I'm laughing a little bit. But so
isn't it a little ironic that they use the budget/reconciliation to get Obamacare passed, but then Harry Reid said last week or the week before, Obamacare has nothing to do with the budget.
Right.
Okay, Harry, now which is it? You use that as an excuse to get it passed, but now you're saying, well, the Republicans or Congress cannot touch it because it has nothing to do with the budget.
Right.
Well, then the law. Then you're telling us you passed the law or got it passed illegally. Hey, my other quick thing I was going to ask you about real quick. It's kind of a what if, because most of this did happen, but nothing happened.
All right, you're going to hold on. Hold on. We're going to take it after the break.
Okay.
Right, hold on. When I get back, we'll talk with Mark a little bit more about a second question, and we'll talk with John. And, of course, it's 540-0580, 540-0580 to get in on the discussion or ask your legal question. Oh, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Whatever you guys want to talk about, get on here. All right, Mark, we're back. What's your second question?
Okay, my son goes to this local establishment. They have their restaurant. They have an outdoor patio area, which you can see from the road. Apparently, 2 years ago, the local police put a DUI stop right in front of the establishment, which the owners weren't very happy about. Well, this summer, my son's sitting out there on the front porch, and there's a cop sitting right across the street watching the bar.
Right.
His three friends leave, him and his two friends, I'm sorry, the two of them in one car, my son in his car. They go not even a half a mile down the road to a convenience store. Policemen follow them all the way down.
Imagine this.
My two friends go in the convenience store. My son, of course, he has a brass set and sits there and stares down the cop. And then, after about 5 minutes, the cop leaves. My son goes to leave. Next thing you know, the cop's right on his tail, follow him right to the township line. Other than calling you if something happens, what do you do in a situation like that?
Well, I mean, here's the answer. I mean, they didn't pull him over, right?
No.
Well, then my answer on that is there's nothing that you can do. But
right.
I would.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if he had been pulled over.
Yeah, if he had been pulled over, well, it depends. If he's really drunk, he might be in trouble. But even if he isn't, he should assert his rights probably, and refuse. I always talk about this, and nobody believes it. Okay, so when it actually happens, they always confuse themselves. You don't have to answer the police officer's questions. Sir, how are you tonight? Good. Where are you coming from? Where am I coming from? The Gingerbread Man in Carlisle. Sir, did you have anything to drink there tonight? Yeah, I had 3 beers, officer. Oh, 3 beers. That's what everybody tells me. Sometimes 2, sometimes 3. Now I've admitted that I was in a bar and I've admitted I was drinking. I smell some alcohol on your breath. Yeah, sure you do. I said I drank, so that's why he smells alcohol in my breath, right?
Right.
But or maybe he does. But of course, if it's me, I'm probably when the cop pulled me over, I probably get my big old cigar out and I'm chomping on that. So if he smells anything, he's going to smell a cigar. But long story short is, okay, so the way you should have handled that was to say, now, and keeping in mind that if you're drunk, and you may have to go to jail, and that's wrong, and it's against the law and all that good stuff. But at the same time, even if you're sober or not, you have all these rights. And so the better conversation would have been, how are you tonight? Good. How are you? Where are you coming from? Well, officer, is there a reason you stopped me? Well, I just wanted to, talk with you. You were weaving a little bit. Sure I was. Okay, officer. Well, then, if this is an investigation of some sort, I'd rather not answer any of your questions. In fact, I'll invoke my right to remain silent. Now, some cops will go crazy, right? You can't do that. You should really. And the one I have on video, who's, what's he say to me? You can hardly hear the video. It's on my Facebook page. You can hardly hear what he says. But the first question he says to me, something along the lines of, what have you been doing? And I told him I'm invoking my right to remain silent, not answering his questions. And then he tells me, well, it's really important you answer my questions because this is being audio and visually recorded. Now, see that kind of horse poo that they're trying to push on me? Because a regular person would somehow think that means something, right? I mean, they go, and I say regular person meaning untrained in the law, like, oh, well, it's being recorded, so I guess I have to answer his questions. This must be the exception to my right to remain silent. There's no exception! Okay? All right, so they tell you that. My follow-up to him was, good, then you can record me saying that I would like to also have my counsel present before I answer any more questions. And then it goes downhill from there. But at this point now, he doesn't have any admission of alcohol. He doesn't have any admission of anything that he can use towards probable cause for an arrest for DUI because reasonable suspicion to stop somebody for traffic, you can articulate, well, he went over the yellow line twice with his left tire. And by the way, anybody out there, I challenge you to do this. I would love people to start doing this. When you're driving down the road, count how many times the police cruiser in front of you touches the double yellow line over the course of a mile or two in broad daylight in the middle of the day. But for some reason, judges have been fooled into believing that touching the double yellow line or touching the white line or going a foot over the line is somehow evidence of intoxication. Yeah. I have a theory.
Well, I know a couple times, and I've told my son these stories. That, I mean, like when I was in college, I ran into the local bar to talk to a friend, came out and dropped my keys, and didn't know there was a cop up the road, and he pulled me over. But I only went in the bar to talk to somebody.
Well, they did that to me.
They're trying to get alcohol out of my breath. Well, I hadn't had any, so...
I went into the... I was writing a brief one night, real late. It was about midnight. I finished up writing the brief, and I thought, it was a Wednesday night, I was go up to the Trindle and have a beer. So sometimes I have some buddies that are out there, and they used to have a DJ on Wednesday nights. Of course, I get there, and they don't have the DJ anymore, because I probably hadn't been there in a year. You know what I mean? So I'm out of date. And I walk in the door, and it's dead. There's nobody there. There's no DJ. Nobody I know is there. So I just turn and walk back out, get in my car, pull out, and I come down Fairground Avenue, not Fairground, Fairfield Street or whatever the heck it is. And I get to the stop sign where you turn right onto Route 74 in Carlisle. And I see the squad car sitting right up the road there. And pretty much, he can see you coming off there. So I take my right turn, blinker, full stop, and the lights just go on, and he pulls me over. And he walks right up to jumps right out of the car and walks right up. And when he walks right up, he says, "You ran the stop sign." And I looked at him and said something I didn't. And, right in his face. Because I knew A, I was sober, B, I was mad, and C, I noticed something, and this is important. Come on, police officers out there. How is it that he could just jump out of his car and come straight to my automobile? Anybody know why that is? I'll tell you why it is. Because if he ran me first, there'd be a record of the transaction, right?
Right.
So instead, what he does is jump out of the car and come straight up. Now, he's still going to have video because a state police car with the video. Now, of course, if they take the unmarked, there's no video in that, so they always want to sign out the unmarked for these kinds of patrols, these kinds of false patrols. So,
okay.
So what he did was, he basically was going to test the waters, and, and if I had been drunk, right, what would he have said? Right. He'd say, "Oh, you're intoxicated," and then he'd have rolled back, then he'd have called it in, and da-da-da-da-da. And so I knew right away that it was a bogus stop. So you know what the state police did with that police officer, right? He got caught doing enough of that by the lawyers that it was starting to look bad in court. Although, it's hard to get the judges to rule directly on point. You know what I mean? Things would get smoothed. So a very prominent DUI defense lawyer who I knew, I said to him, "Hey, I'll tell you about a police officer who pulled me over." And he said, "Don't tell me the name." He's like, just tell me your story. And while I was telling the story, he's arranging his silverware on the table. And he's like, "Look at the silverware." And it was the 3 initials of the police officer. And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So you know what they did with him, right? They moved him to another barracks after a while. So they handle it. The state police handle when police officers start to be found discreditable in a particular precinct or borough or township or county. The way that law enforcement handles it is they do it the old Catholic Church style. You move them to a new diocese. That way, the parents aren't quite onto them yet. Well, in this case, the local constabulary isn't quite onto it yet. So anyhow, I wax about this only to say it's really annoying because we see these stops. So that bar, I was just talking about, over the years we've seen people get pulled over, and that the only reason they were pulled over was because they pulled out of the bar, which is not fair. It's unconstitutional. It's wrong. It's illegal. They just happen to be over the legal limit. And that's bad policing, and it's lazy policing, but unfortunately it goes on.
Right. Well, I know my son was telling me he did get pulled over one night after a couple beers. The officer gave him a breathalyzer. It came up a .04, and the officer started thinking, well, this thing may not be calibrated right, so on and so forth, trying to get my son to, admit to something else, and he was like, wouldn't go for it. So. Right.
Oh, yeah. No, it reminds me of the polygraph. When you fail it, you're guilty, but when you pass, they go, well, it doesn't necessarily mean you're not lying, so.
Right. Well, you have a great afternoon there, Carl.
All right, take care, my friend. 540-0580. John, thanks for waiting patiently. How are you?
Yeah, I have a question. If politicians take an oath of office, when can you sue them for violating it?
Well,
or can't you?
I mean, violating an oath of office, I don't know the answer to that. And let me explain it. So the oath of office is to defend the Constitution, right? And to discharge the law and all that good stuff. So I guess you don't really sue them for violating their oath so much as you claim a specific act is outside their powers or illegal. And you could find they violated oath only when a court agrees that what they're doing is not proper, right?
Right. So if somebody makes a statement that says you have to read it to find out what's in it, does that mean that they're pushing laws that they know are unconstitutional?
No, not at all. In fact, they don't even know. More importantly, anything passed by Congress is presumed to be constitutional, right?
Not if they know it's unconstitutional.
No. Anything passed by a legislative body is presumed to be constitutional until proven otherwise. Meaning, meaning what? Meaning if I voted for it and enough other guys voted for it, it's presumed to be constitutional. So anything that passes, right, is not going to violate your oath of office because it's presumed to be constitutional. So you can't possibly have violated your oath by passing something that was presumed to be constitutional. Now,
so if the Supreme Court makes a ruling and you turn around and pass a law that is the same thing, are you violating your oath of office?
Oh, well, the exact same law, well, it would be null coming out, and theoretically at that point, I guess you could argue that that's the case. The flip side is a legislative body, I guess, is entitled to pass the same bad laws many times as it wants. It just will never be enforced.
Yeah. All right.
I know. Everybody wants to sue the politicians for violating their oath of office like this is some kind of remedy. The remedy is called the ballot box, but here's what happened. All the sheeple in the world, me, you, and all the rest of us sheeple, what we did over all the years was let our good state legislatures gerrymander everything to the point where everybody's electorally safe. The Republicans don't get bumped out of their little houses, and the Democrats don't get bumped out of their little houses. So our Congress, particularly our Congress, right, is gerrymandered to the point where the House of Representatives has tons and tons of electorally safe seats. The only thing that can happen is a primary challenge. So we've given up our democracy by letting the state gerrymander these districts to the point where we don't have a ballot box remedy like we used to. And then we have closed primaries in states like Pennsylvania to further compound it. I got to let him go. Too much noise there. 540-0580. I'll see you guys after the break. Hey, I'm back. 540-0580. And let's see. Let's take these in order now. Dave, you've been holding the longest. What's going on, my friend?
Oh, yeah, Carl. Hello?
Yep. You're on the air. You're on the air.
I have a copyright on a business name, and I've had it for about 7-8 years, which we're using for some time. It's a little bit dormant right now, but do I have a legal right to keep people from using that? I saw it advertised by a big company on television.
And it's tell me what it is exactly. I mean, not exactly, but generally, what are we talking about?
It's a shipping company that I have.
Uh-huh.
And the name of it is being used by a big company.
Well, the name of the shipping company may be intellectual property. Did you trademark the name?
No, I didn't. Well, no. Just copyrighted it.
Okay. And, here's the answer. I don't know the answer. But we had an intellectual property lawyer on the show a while back, okay? Uh-huh. So here's what you're going to do. Go to RomingerLaw.com, right?
Okay.
Go to the news section, and you want to go back through our news, and you're going to find a section in there. I think it was Kelly Keller who was on the show, and you can find all her contact information there. And that way you'll be able to hook up with her. Yep. March 27th, 2013, she was on the show, and it's on the second page in the news feed. And it was all her contact information. She is a top-flight intellectual property attorney, and she'll know the answer off the top of her head, okay?
Okay.
All right, my friend.
We're good. Appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Bye.
Got to defer to the experts. All right, who's next? Lewis?
Oh, thank you.
What's going on?
I have a question about an out-of-state driving while impaired charge.
Yeah.
Employee blew a .07 while out of state, and there's a professional license involved. How can we expect this to play out?
Well, let's explain it this way. When you say professional license involved, you mean a CDL or a doctor's license? Or
Let's say healthcare.
Healthcare, yeah. The short answer is I would recommend they find a diversionary program in that state that's the equivalent of IRA that avoids a conviction, because obviously avoiding a conviction would mean there's nothing to report to a licensing board, right?
Okay. Well, not yet. There will be.
Well, I'm saying, but there won't be if there's no conviction, right? Or do you have to?
That's not how it's worded. It's just like, were you ever arrested for anything related to alcohol? If so, explain.
Right. Well, then that's going to be an issue. And so the result, an acquittal or a dismissal would be nice, right?
Right.
And, of course, a .07 is not, in our state, a problem.
But down there it is.
Yeah. And so that's going to be an issue. And under that state's law, it will be a DUI. So what I would want to do, without getting into all the nitty-gritty, I would probably want to coordinate with the lawyer down there to make sure that whatever we're getting is the best thing we can have for up here.
So 2 attorneys involved.
I would say you would want to have somebody up here sort of figuring out what the medical people up here, whichever licensing board it is going to look at, and then massage it down there to make it fit as best as possible up here.
All right.
All right?
Thank you.
All right, my friend. Yeah, what happens is when you're in trouble out of state, the way out-of-state offenses are treated, you have to just be careful, because sometimes something sounds more innocuous out of state, or it is a lesser charge in that state, but our state treats it as equivalent to a more serious offense because they don't translate exactly. And then what subsection of the foreign statute you were found guilty under becomes important, and things like that. Sometimes those things aren't specified, but they could have been specified. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I had a guy one time contact me from another state who was working with a licensing board, and his issue was his charges were essentially dismissed, but the way it showed from that state, it didn't show as a dismissal in the permanent criminal record. But if you were from that state, I did some research, if you were from that state, you would have learned that in that state, anybody reading that criminal record would recognize it was dismissed. Just the way they write it up doesn't look like our dismissal. So I was able to find the section of their law that explains why that is a dismissal and can't be held against you under their state's law. And this state was willing to accept that explanation. So it does pay to check those things out. 540-0580. Ray, you're on the air. Hey, Ray.
Oh, me?
Yep, you. Like a drop of golden sun. And I'm me, you're Ray. Okay, let's go.
Okay. This Obamacare thing, I want to get it cleared up from the couple callers ago. You're saying that even though that Obamacare was or is the law of the land, the way it was written, Obama can still take pieces out and put pieces into it, even though it's already passed in the form that it's in.
I'm saying the executive can choose what to enforce and what not to enforce as a general rule. Okay?
Oh, yeah, okay. Now, that being said, the Supreme Court decided that Obamacare was a tax, or is a tax, right?
They decided that it survived constitutional scrutiny under the necessary and proper clause as part of the tax. Well, as part of a tax authority, yes. Okay.
Now, my understanding for the Constitution is that any of those tax bills have to originate in the House, correct?
That created a little ripple when they were originally passing it, because remember, Obamacare itself did originate in the House.
Now, well, it's my understanding that the reason that they want to call it a penalty is because it really originated in the Senate.
I thought when they did reconciliation, that was one of the issues, was because issues.
No, as much reading as I've done about it, I found out that originated in the House, in the Senate, and that's why they wanted to call it a penalty, and that's the big problem. But the only thing, you can't do anything about a remedy for the simple fact is you first got to be injured before you can do a remedy. So in other words, you have to be given a penalty, which would be the tax, according to the Supreme Court, in order to do any litigation against it. That's why they fought to make it such a penalty, because it didn't originate in the Senate.
Interesting. I don't know. So I'll have to check that out. I thought there was a ripple with that, though, because there were some issues with the parliamentarian about which portions required another vote.
Right. that's the ripple. That's why they want to keep it a penalty, and that's why Obama keeps saying he wants it to be a penalty, that it's not a tax, to keep it legal under the Constitution, that the bill has to originate in the House.
Well, yeah, and I thought, though, if you read the Supreme Court decision, doesn't the Supreme Court decision suggest that because it was taxing, in other words, they were standing to challenge it, it was a tax, but the Anti-Tax Injunction Act didn't really apply to this so there was a whole convoluted discussion of whether it really was a tax or not, or whether it was really under the necessary and proper clause of the Constitution. I think the Supreme Court hasn't really sorted that out yet.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. So it can be taken back to the Supreme Court, and that's why I think Justice Roberts left it open like that he realized, and I don't know, he might be a lot smarter than what I think he is, and he probably is because he's there and I'm here, but the fact is that he knows that is what they wanted as a penalty, and I think it's going to work its way back up there when somebody gets injured as far as has to pay taxes if they want to go through the fact that it was created in the Senate.
Well, what about is it Oklahoma or one of the states who's basically saying that you can't give a tax credit to anything that's through a federal exchange, that only applies to state exchanges?
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I'm just trying to figure out is whenever after next year, after people do get like that, and there's like the Heritage Foundation and all that, I don't know if I can say it, I just did, but if they would litigate something like that, or if that's going to go back to court, from everything I read, that's what's going to head back up to the Supreme Court when there's penalties or taxes instead of penalties. I just wondered how much of you were up on it.
Yeah, no, I only remember it from the standpoint of, well, A, I correctly predicted that Roberts would be the surprise vote on it. But B, I also remember it from the standpoint of when the procedural votes were going on, that there was parliamentary issues that had to be resolved because there seemed to be origination issues, and the conference committee needed special authorizations and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I do remember there being issues. And you're right, though, this has only begun to be litigated, and you do have to be harmed in order to get standing to come to court. Now, the people that originally came in, they were claiming they were harmed immediately, and I forget their exact hook on that. But most people aren't going to be affected until, well, I don't know. Does having your doctor not participate in any of your Obama available exchange plans constitute a harm, since it was promised?
Yeah. See, that's what I'm saying is I think it's just got a long way to go. It's just going to be a mess for a while. Okay, thanks.
All right. Thanks, Ray. Got to go to break. 540-0580. Oh, I'm back. I got this in on an email. My car dealership doesn't want to give me a loaner on the weekends. Well, sometimes car dealerships don't want to give people loaners on the weekends because they've had bad experiences with them in the past where they drive, 570 miles. So if you haven't done something like that in the past or abused the loaners over the weekends, or they can't spot a pattern where every time you want to go away, you try to shove the miles on the dealership, and particularly if you weren't in a lease but you owned your vehicle outright, that would probably also be a factor. But if you're in a low mileage lease, I would think the owners or the car dealership are probably flagging you for some reason, or they just have a policy, so you want to check into that. I don't think it's actionable unless, of course, your contract absolutely specifies that any time they have to give you a loaner. But I suspect somewhere in the fine print you've got a problem. 540-0580. Floyd, you're on the air. What's going on, Floyd? Hey, Floyd.
Carl.
Yep.
I live in an area where it's a state highway.
Uh-huh.
And when you come into town, the last sign you see is a 55 mile an hour. Then you see a 45. You go a quarter mile and you see a 35.
Yeah.
Are they legal without pre-warning signs?
And what do you mean warning sign? Speed ahead? I think they are. I don't think a reduced speed ahead is mandatory, but I can look into that. So if you want to hang out and listen into the next hour, rather than stretching my legs during the break, I will try to get you an answer on that.
Well, I was always told from the reduced speeds ahead sign to the speed sign is your transition zone, and without them, it's not a legal, I'll say, arrest for speeding.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's required or not, but I'm gonna find out for you. So if you hold tight till about 2:05, 2:10, I will get your answer. Okay.
Okay, good enough.
All right, Floyd. I'll be answering it then. 540-0580. George, you're on the air.
Yes. If you have Medicare, do you need Obamacare?
If you have Medicare, well, most of Obamacare is actually Medicare and Medicaid. Yeah, so no, you don't need it if you have it. You're going to get to keep that. You get to keep your doctors, maybe.
Well, okay. All you need is supplemental with Medicare then.
Yeah, Medicare. Yeah, supplemental. I think is something you're still going to have to get on your own, and you may have to get that through an exchange eventually.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Bye.
I'm becoming an expert on Obamacare slowly but surely. Actually, the Obamacare kit's probably like 2 aspirin and a Band-Aid. And listen, here's what's going to happen. This whole thing is going to go down the toilet in a rapid fashion because, as you can tell, they're having trouble with their websites. They're having all kinds of issues. People are discovering that it's costing a lot more money. And what was the one state? There's not a single plan in the entire state that allows you to get medical care from outside of the state, except you pay 100% of the bill on that. So I guess you can't leave the state anymore and get sick because if you land in any other hospital, you're going to have a huge bill. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous that the only available plans. Now, here's what happens. Notice all the employers are dumping the plans, and you're going to see this mass exodus of employer plans. And they're going to lower the number of hours people work. Watch for future tweaks on that, too, because they're going to probably lower that number even lower to force employers to think about purchasing health insurance again. You know, here's what happens. I can move dial an employee back to, say, 30 hours a week or 28 hours a week or whatever. But if I start rolling employees back to 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, 20 hours a week, or lower, 25, 26, in order to avoid health care costs, if they lower that number some more, training becomes an issue, continuity becomes an issue, and the cost of doing business with so many employees go up. So I suspect that will be the remedy in that direction if they actually want to push people back into health care through the employer. But a lot of people believe, and a lot of people think that what's been going on historically here is that this is a push to single-payer plan, which is, in other words, oh, we're sorry, we tried, it seemed like a great idea, and Obamacare's kind of screwed up. But by the way, we've completely stripped down and rebuilt the insurance marketplace to the point where, well, there is no way to go back to where we were. Dave, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on, Dave?
Carl, this is Dave Nesbitt. How are you doing?
Hey, what's up, my friend?
I was listening to your previous caller about Obamacare and Medicare.
Yes.
And people are confused. I mean, I'm confused. I think everybody's confused. But you'd probably do your listeners a favor to tell them that from October 15 through December 7, they have the Medicare open enrollment period. And that's when people get to pick their Medicare supplements and reconsider prescription drug plans and that sort of thing. A really, really good source of information is the Apprise website, APPRISE. And that'll tell people where the county office of agings are having seminars on that and that sort of thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I think people are just confused about this whole marketplace and Medicare sign-up. It's just information overload.
Yeah, and I'm seeing, what do I want to say? Well, I tried to go to the website, right, because I wanted to see what happened. And this stupid thing doesn't let, I mean, I have to basically like give them my name, date of birth, social security number, and all this other rigmarole before they'll even like show me what plans might be available to me.
Right, so now you're counted as a registrant, and that information is being used by some parties to suggest that you've enrolled, and you probably haven't.
Yeah, and I actually just didn't go that far. I got to that point and said, you know what, if you guys can't show, this reminds me of going to the store and saying, hey, I want to buy a new car. And they're like, well, we want to run your credit, and we want to do this, and we want to do that, and we need your Social Security. And I'm like, no. I just want to know how much the damn thing costs.
I haven't been to the website yet. I haven't been that bold. I guess I'm hoping they work the bugs out of it. But it's very confusing, and especially for, like my clientele at Keystone Elder Law is senior people. And I'm 59, and I'm starting to feel like a senior person with all this confusion. But as we get older, it's information overload.
Yeah.
And we don't know who to believe or what to believe.
And I have the problem here, too, with, some of my older callers who I like to make fun of periodically have no internet. They will call my law office and say, well, I would have sent Mr. Rominger an email, but I don't have internet. And it's a surprisingly large number of people. And when I say surprisingly, it's because those of us who have forget, I suspect everybody thinks everybody has a grill, right? But if you went around the neighborhood, probably only 60% of people actually have an outdoor grill.
Well,
I don't know.
That's a good point, because people who don't have access to internet are at a disadvantage right now, decided disadvantage.
Yeah. Well, Dave, you got any seminars or anything exciting going on?
Actually, thanks for asking. Not this Thursday, but next Thursday, we are having seminars at the Ross Moyne Business Center on various issues related to older persons and caregivers. It'll be Thursday the 24th at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 7 o'clock. And we encourage people to call us at Keystone Elder Law in Advance. 697-3223 is the phone number.
All right.
And,
what's that phone number again?
697-3223.
All right. Sign up with Dave. I got to go. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carl.
All right. 540-0580. After the break, we'll be here.